Hi, this is Paul Neustrom with the podcast Skyrocket to Success. And today I have a guest of Amy Yamada on the line. So how you doing?
Great. Thank you so much for having me, Paul. I'm excited to be here.
I am too. You were my first online mentor when I got started back in 2018. And I loved what you were doing back then. And you were helping me to get clear on, kind of my message of what it was all about. And so it's been a fantastic experience to network with you and to learn from you. And you've done quite a few things since 2018. Why don't you give us a little bit of background about yourself and a little bit about your journey of how you skyrocket to success?
Yeah, it's funny when you said that, like you've done a few things. I'm like, yeah, it's definitely evolved in the last handful of years or so. But I've had my business for about 12 plus years at this point, and it's so interesting now to look back at where I was, where I started, how it's evolved, the peaks and valleys of the whole journey. But I wouldn't change it for anything. And I came from the corporate world. I worked in corporate for about 15 years before I went off on my own. And yeah, I was in the media, advertising, and sales. And at some point in my journey, in corporate, I realized I really want to become my own boss. Like I really want to go off on my own. And I didn't know what it looked like, but I just started to experiment and explore. It was kind of a soul searching experience. And ultimately, I realized that I really love entrepreneurship. I really love the authentic marketing and messaging and deep human connection side of business. And so that's really where I found my niche. And even though I have done a number of, kind of different things throughout the years in terms of the programs and masterminds and products that we've created, it all has always had a through line of authenticity, authentic marketing, authentic messaging, and really focusing on what I believe is the most treasured part of business, which is the people. And so I could go on and on, but it's been a lot of fun to work with entrepreneurs who are very passionate about growing their impact as they grow their income, and know that at the end of the day, I believe we do what we do because we're passionate about the impact that we get to make for others. So that's just a little bit about my journey.
Awesome. Awesome. So I want to do a little spin on this podcast and actually do like a working podcast because you are currently mentoring me and instructed me of really how to get clear on who my avatar, who my niche audience is. And
Yeah.
we've just had a great interaction online with a group of students, and I filled out a survey of kind of some things that I wanted to kind of put out, what it is that I'm trying to do and to help people.
Mhm.
And you came back with like a 38 page handbook, which is called the Ideal Client Handbook.
Yes.
And I was just blown away. And I actually even formatted it into a paperback book because I wanted to talk to you
Awesome.
about it and see if that's okay for me to put out there for people that are wondering, would they be a good client, of Paul's? And so, but it's 65 pages. And so it's just like exhaustive. But
Yeah.
I really love how you help people to get clear.
Mhm.
And I don't even know if my target audience, which it seems like the people that have really gravitated towards me. And I was thinking for my memoir of Death of a Yellow Page Salesman, it's going to be guys, 55 and older, but it hasn't been. It's been more women 35 to 55. And so could you speak a little bit about that? A little bit of my history and such, but let's dive into this and just do a podcast about dialing into Paul's whole, business and, because
Yeah.
I have nothing to hide. I
I
like to
love
put it
it.
out there, and maybe this will be a little bit different podcast for you, huh?
Yeah, I like it though. I love the creativity. And sometimes I find too, even just, leading so many group coaching programs and workshops, is that when I get the chance to kind of hot seat or spotlight one person, then that's when others have a breakthrough too. So I could see this as being kind of a spotlight opportunity. And also hopefully for those of you listening, that this could support you as well. So yeah, so Paul, it's interesting because I know you've shared this with me before about how who you thought was going to be your ideal client, who's been gravitating towards you is different. And the way I look at it is initially when I think about who is my ideal client or who is your ideal client, instead of what we used to need to do or have to do when it comes to identifying who our ideal client is, it's like we would sit down and we would answer all these questions around, what's the target demographic? What's the age range? What's this? What's that? And we as the business owners and marketers had to answer all these questions. And sometimes we'd go out into the field and do hours upon hours upon hours of market research, meaning interviewing your potential ideal client and noticing the through line and doing surveys. I mean, it was endless in terms of the amount of time needed to really get to know your ideal client. And now with AI, it's just been incredible to see how we can really come up with a system around only putting in a few inputs and answering a few questions. And then we, as we've created our product, the Ideal Client Handbook, and we can then provide this done for you, customized, deep qualitative analysis on who your ideal client is. So for you, Paul, the questions that I know that you answered when you had your Ideal Client Handbook, the customized handbook created, were all around what is your purpose? Like the main questions are what is your purpose? Like why do you do what you do? And what is your desired transformation for your ideal client? So even for those of you watching, you can think about those two questions. Like what is my purpose? Like, what do I stand for? Why do I do what I do? And what is your desired transformation or outcome for your ideal client? What is your wish for them? And even just by being able to answer these two questions can really, it can open up who you're really meant to serve. It can open up really powerful messaging and how you communicate with your audience. So Paul, I'd love to ask you. I know you've already got into the Ideal Client Handbook account and done this, but if you were to share, what is your purpose? Like, why do you do what you do?
Well, it's interesting, Amy, because when I went to go sit down and do the three questions that you were asking, and they were pretty involved, multiple questions for each, of the three different aspects of the kind of the summation I was trying to come up with. And so the first time I sat down, I was just overwhelmed. And so I found that I had about a half an hour the next day before I was going to, prepare dinner for my wife and everything. And I just thought, I'm going to sit down. I had a glass of wine and I just thought, I'm just going to make it simple. And I'm just going to put the essence, not try to overthink it, but just kind of put it out there. And it basically was the fact that when my book came out, it was overwhelming as far as how well it did.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so hard for me to put it out there because I was exposing kind of the most vulnerable part of my life. And I actually sat on that book for 2 years before I published it because I was so apprehensive about talking about the lowest point in my life. And where just 4 years ago, I was sleeping in an abandoned church. And I had just left the monastery. And when you and I were interacting together, I had a beard down to my chest and I had hair down to my shoulders, because when you're in a men's monastery, you don't cut your hair, you don't shave or anything like that. But so I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do with this, whole, transitioning from I was selling yellow pages of all thing and also media, kind of like yourself in the past. But I thought, what is it I can really do for people? So I originally thought I was going to be helping people with their Google. And my book kind of talks about, 3 or 4 different clients that I picked up that, I was able to take them from number 17 to number 1 on Google. And I'm just kind of a Google expert. But after I started, really going on stage and speaking about the book and, to really dive in to kind of help people. And a lot of people were asking me, Paul, how did your book go number 1 in so many categories? And, my publisher even, has helped 1,500 authors to hit bestseller status. And they came back and said, Paul, your book had unheard of results. And I said, is that good? And they said, yeah, it's good. And so, and it's just because I did some things in traditional marketing to promote the book on that launch week that was kind of outside the norm. And what I did is I posted a press release into several groups I was, part of on LinkedIn, and it went to 6.5 million people, and they were all marketing people.
Yeah.
And it was talking about going from the lowest point, which is just a few years ago, to where I did so well. So to answer your question now is what I'm doing now, and what I transition, and really what fulfills me is because when I was in that abandoned church, and I was thinking, what can I do, with my life, because I'd really lost my purpose.
Mm.
And I was searching for meaning and something, because I was all alone. I didn't, wasn't attached to anybody. And I had a couple of years to retire. But I thought, if I helped people to really find their voice and get clear on their messaging, and that's exactly what you had helped me to do.
Yeah.
And because I think the book that you had, what was that book called? Clear, or I remember the steps were CLEAR,
Create,
and it
yep.
was a little
Yeah.
booklet.
Yeah, a little
Yeah,
booklet. It was create your clear message. Just very straight up, create your clear message. Just a little booklet, and yes, you remember it very well. Yep.
right. So to boil down the answer in just a few sentences, like you asked me to do in this little survey, is what I do is I help people to really launch their authority, to become a best-selling author, how to find the compelling content in their book to become an in-demand public speaker, and then to prosper as an entrepreneur. And I created a movement online called Publish, Speak, and Prosper, which, we're building up for a community. We're doing a summit. We're doing challenges where
Yeah.
we talk about, how to publish, how to speak, how to prosper, and to really get those people that really mastered it to come together and to be able to provide something.
So good. I love,
Long answer.
but I
Sorry.
love it because when you shared in your answer, I mean, it just, hearing your story and your experience and the vulnerability of, like, when you just said I had lost my purpose, right? I was like, oh, like, I feel like that's such a relatable experience, I think, for most at some point in their journey, if not multiple points. And what I love about that so much is that you actually gave yourself permission to explore that and to really think about what is it that I want to focus on next? How can I best serve people? And I just love that question, because I think at the end of the day, we are meant to be in contribution to this world, and just that beautiful question of how can I serve people? Um, yeah, I'm going to be thinking about that one. So it's really beautiful. It's great.
And I like how you kind of break the mold. Is one of the things I really admire about you, Amy, is the fact that you kind of break the mold and you go a different direction than everybody else online. I mean, I just ordered a book up here, The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone, and everybody's trying to do it the same way. Webinars, master classes, masterminds, where you're always trying to bring a lot of people into one group. But I love how you actually do it differently. And I actually invested in one of your programs here just in the last month,
Mhm.
called doing a VIP. What is the program called? VIP Day?
Yeah,
What is it
VIP
called
day
again?
system. Yeah, it's the VIP day system program. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I love that, because you're actually, working with a handful of people and this is a dream I had of, is to fly away to an exotic location. You're in a
Mhm.
destination resort. You compress the time to be able to really help them in kind of an implementation type of fashion.
Yeah.
And I had a dream of doing this with a cruise ship, and just found that there's just too many working parts to it. And consulting with you and getting dialed in on really kind of my dream offer to offer people, and then to actually have it coming to fruition, is just amazing. So that's
Yeah.
great thing you have to offer to people, Amy.
I appreciate you saying that, because, early on, I look back at my journey and I think about how initially it seemed so natural to, look at people who were already in business for a number of years and be like a mini version of them, like, oh, not like copying their content, but just like, oh, Maria Forleo has an online course called B School. It's very popular. I should have a course like that, like, and just, I think early on, it's very common and natural to want to be like the people that we admire. And the problem with that, as my partner Ken and I have talked about, it's like, why would you ever want to become a second-rate version of somebody else versus becoming a first-rate version of yourself?
Mhm.
And as I've really thought about this piece around what I'm such a stand for, which is authenticity. It's like, well, how would I want someone to coach me? How would I want someone to present a webinar or a masterclass? What do I love of what I'm seeing out there? What do I hate about what I'm seeing out there? And there were just a lot of things that, in my opinion, were and are very cringy. And I'm just like, these are old school sales tactics that nobody really likes. So why are people still doing them? They're very antiquated. And so as I continue to create the workshops and live either in person or virtual experiences, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it the way that I believe will resonate with the people I connect with the most. And so there's a lot of things I just learn, and then I'm like, that doesn't work for me. So I'm going to throw that part. I like this piece, but I'm going to throw that other part out the window because it doesn't align with me at all. And I just believe that at the end of the day, authenticity wins. And when you're being your true self, you will attract the most aligned, dreamy clients. And so I appreciate what you're saying, because it wasn't always that way. And I feel like even in my life and in my business, I keep peeling back layers. I'm like, how can I be just more myself? And it's all good, So it's been fun.
I
Yeah.
just saw a post here in the last few days by Gary Brecka, and he was talking about how a lot of times, when you feel like you're in alignment with people and you're giving off a certain wavelength or frequency, and that, they can actually measure that. And, if you're with somebody that's kind of like-minded, or, kind of on the same, wavelength or level, is it actually raises the frequency, or that intensity or energy or whatever you want to call it. But there was a quality that when people give this off, it's 400 times more powerful than love. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like crazy. And it's authenticity.
Yeah.
And so when, your message really resonates with people, and they see, the vulnerability part of it, and you've got that figured out, and it's something that I've just stumbled onto here recently. But currently I'm working on a book that's actually due by the end of February here in just a few days. And I haven't even started on it. It's just a chapter in a book called Author Playbook.
Oh, nice.
And, I'm actually working on this subject. So I came up with just the other morning. It's like I get these downloads, from heaven, I believe, and in the morning. But I was trying to think, what is it about, authenticity or finding your message that makes it so compelling? And I had this acronym come to me, a voice. Is that when you really find your voice, then that just really makes a difference. And voice is the most powerful aspect of that, because it can be written voice, it can be speaking voice, but the O for that is originality, and the I is, just your inspiration that you have. Because a lot of times, if you're always copying or using AI, your inspiration is more a mechanical instead of, something that's really heart, that comes from you and inside of you. And then the C is just simply creativity, where it's just different than everybody else. And E, I haven't landed on a good, E, essence, empowerment, some E word, but to me, that's the real basis of
Yeah.
really, having something that's clear and that's heartfelt, that's authentic, and I was excited to share this with you.
I
And you
love
can
it.
help me write the book, Amy, because I'm going to transcribe this and use part of it,
Totally. Yeah, no, as you were saying that, I was like, I love a good challenge. So when you said E, I was like, oh, I like that you said essence. Another word that came to me was embodiment, or embody. Something, I was talking to a woman the other day who has come to a lot of my recent workshops, and she's like, I just love that you embody it. You embody the values, you embody. And I was like, I really received that. I was like, thank you. It's not about me, but it's like, I think when we are really standing for something beyond the surface level thing, then we can exude that, and kind of like what you're saying, that exude that energy, that authenticity. And it's like, when we can just be our message, when we can embody it, then people can feel that, right? They can just feel like, oh, this is my person. Like, this is someone I want to connect with, or someone I don't want to connect with, whatever, right? But there's just like you said, there's like that energy. Energy is another one, right? Energy is a good one. So play
I
with
like
it.
the embodiment. That's the best one I've come up with. Empower is better than empowerment.
Yeah.
And it's funny because on the last speaking tour I was on, we had launched another book, Author Code, and it went number one in all three categories the day before the release. And so, and I was talking about it that we just couldn't believe, how this momentum had been building. And so I had a follower, and I've had close to like 250 followers a day, on one of my Facebook profiles. It's an international profile. But, um, you know, this gal said, Paul, your life is just palpable. And I was like, I had to look it up to make sure I was understanding it. But,
Yeah.
but this embodiment thing is that when people perceive that, or they see something that's in you that maybe hasn't actually been realized yet, but it's like all the working parts to kind of for it to come into being. And so it's just a great thing to interact with you and get coaching from you, because you just are so dialed into this aspect of the whole online thing. So
Yeah, it's my passion. Like when I hear you speaking about what you've been up to over the years, like I just get really curious as well as the woman who said it's like really palpable. So I have a question for you, Paul. If you could say anything, like if you know, I mean, your audience, that they also want what you have, right? They want to write a book and get this exposure. They want to put themselves out there. They want to publish and speak and become prosperous and all that. And if you were to just take it a step deeper and just speak from like a next level, and maybe you already do this, but I'm curious, what would you say it has really taken for you to just make this happen, like bring this to life? Like if you were just to be so raw and so honest, what would it be?
that's a really dialed in and great question. I think that the hesitation that I had previous, and the fact that I had not found my voice, I wasn't really embodying the message. And I was so full of fear and hesitation, and the fact that I wasn't really willing to step into my purpose.
Yeah.
And I've really seen that that's really what I help people to do, is to step out of that, just the vulnerability part, and where it's such an uncomfortable thing. I mean, I sat on that book for 2 years,
Yeah.
and it went through 12 edits, and I was like doing everything possible to keep it from going out, because I didn't know what people were going to think. I didn't know what my kids were going to think, and for once it came out, to see the other side of it,
Yeah.
and then to be able to step into that, to be vulnerable, to really speak with an authentic voice, not where it's all planned out, where it's all scripted, you have your teleprompter and all that, but to actually go on. And I might have like one or two things I might want to mention, but the less prepared I am when I go to speak, it's the better it is.
Right.
And so, it's really, being unafraid.
Yeah.
And, I know that I'm a big believer in the Bible, and I love, scripture as well as other books too.
Mhm.
But there's 365 references in the Bible that talk about, to not have fear. And I figure there's 365 days. So
Yeah.
every day we have to work on, not having fear, to step into our purpose, to
Yeah.
be able to believe that we can do it, and, not necessarily on our own strength, is
Right.
because a lot of times it takes a power greater than you to be able to really step into your purpose, and where you, are welcoming help.
Mhm.
I just, and for people to come back and say, oh, Paul, your message meant so much to me, or your book changed my life. I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
So that's a great thing. And I think women really, that's the thing that kind of surprised me, is how much women have responded, where they're really looking to, and your client handbook, I've only made it about halfway through it,
Mhm.
but you really talk about a lot of the pain points that women have. of not having that like that false sense where you're trying to break through and what do you call it? I'm losing the where you have the syndrome,
Oh, imposter.
imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
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 And, I have imagine you've coached just hundreds and if not thousands of people on this very aspect.
For sure. Yes. It's something that I believe that every true ambitious entrepreneur goes through, and that includes, future authors and future speakers. It's like at some point in my journey in coaching so many people, I realized every single person that I coach at some point says to me, Amy, who am I to think that I can do this? Or what, who's going to invest in working with me? Or very simply, like, I feel like a fraud. Like I'm not a fraud, but I feel like a fraud because who am I to, and it's all under this umbrella of imposter syndrome. And I'm like, well, how can you be an imposter if you are you, right? You yourself, right? Like, and I understand it because I myself have had it. But when I realized that every single person, even very established entrepreneurs, this is what blew my mind was when I was talking to an entrepreneur that I really admire. His name's Jesse Itzler. So you may know him. He's a serial entrepreneur. His wife is Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, self-made billionaire. They're both self-made billionaires, just incredible people. And I was in this endurance training with him. We were training for this race. Anyway, I was asking him some questions, and he said, "Yeah, I'm about to host my first in-person large event." And I had done that myself. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're gonna crush it! It's gonna be amazing." He's like, "Yeah, but I'm a little nervous." And I just thought, Jesse Itzler is like self-made billionaire. Jesse Itzler is nervous. Like, how could you be nervous or scared of anything? And he goes, "Amy, while I have spoken on many others' stages at their conferences, this is the first time I've ever done my own conference. What if people come and they feel like they don't get the value that I promised? Like, what if this, what if that?" And I was like, oh my goodness, like we're all human. And he said, "I have never done this before." And it just really gave me this breakthrough of, doesn't matter if you're new at something or you've been around for a long time, and especially as an entrepreneur, if you're doing something new for the first time, of course it's uncomfortable. Of course there's risk. Of course there's vulnerability. And it just made me realize it's not about us all being at these different levels and this hierarchy and like who's been around longer, who's done better, who's more successful. It's like we're all the same. We all have our vulnerabilities. So I think it's actually quite beautiful. And so now whenever I am doing something new, I often will think of Jesse. I'm like, you know what? He was nervous about putting on his first event, as where he is in his journey. And it's okay that I feel nervous right now too. And I never want to let anything stop me from my purpose and stepping in and stretching myself and being courageous. Because at the end of the day, at the end of life, when we're all 111 years old, looking back, like I want to look back at a life fully lived. I want to look back at this courageous person that just went all in and just, yeah, I fell down, but I got back up. I want that story, not the story of like, I played it so safe and small, So anyway, yeah.
The feelings of anxiety or nervousness are the same as being excited.
Yeah.
And so if you can just label your feeling differently instead of like, oh, I'm so nervous or I'm so anxious, but really you're excited.
Yeah.
And I know when you get up on stage and you've got like a whole room full of people, it's a nerve-wracking experience, but because it's so exciting.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a special moment because, they're there to hear your message. And it's just so powerful. And talking about sometimes interacting like with people that you just think maybe on a completely different level than yourself. Just last Friday, a week ago, I had a individual on my show, Justin Prince, who I just reached out to. He's on Instagram. He had a fantastic reel. It's professionally done of his family traveling all over the world last year. And he just looked like a cool guy. And I knew as an author, a speaker, he was aligned with John Maxwell. So I reached out to him and I said, Justin, I love your reel. I'd love to have you on my podcast, skyrocket2success.com. And, just get to know you better because you look like, you're just having a fantastic life. And, he has $3 billion companies.
Yeah.
And so we had the most amazing conversation. And one of the things I like to do is I like to do things outside of the box.
Hmm.
And, I've seen where you have like the 65 different questions you can ask, your podcast guest. But we dove into his book. We talked about, the fact that, how did you come back from living above your in-laws, garage, with your wife and two kids to owning $3 billion companies. And, it was just an amazing time. But, that interaction, sometimes you think you hesitate
Right.
because oh they're a nine-figure earner and I'm only I'm down here. And so but the reality is they love to interact with people that maybe where they can, it's just like I like to help people. And
Yeah,
so I know you're the same way too, Amy.
absolutely. Absolutely. So good. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things with my actual avatar or my client is I don't think I really have it dialed in yet, because my offer is just kind of a brand new offer where I actually am inviting people to come on and publish a book with me, and I haven't actually done it yet. The publisher I work with, we've done multiple books together. We've done this, and they all come out number one international bestsellers. I mean, just right out of the gate. There's such a power in anthology books because you have the combined following of everybody, and it's just an amazing thing. And if it's on a certain topic or category or subject, then it just it really resonates with people. But, how do I know? I mean, it's probably from the people that respond. But when you're going into it and you don't know, you haven't seen the response yet, how do you know if you're what you think to be your client audience is really your client audience?
Oh, that's a great question. I I would say that by just experiencing it. Like when I think back to my journey, that is a really good question. When I think back to my journey, I think about how at the beginning I didn't know, right? I did not know, and I wasn't clear even on who I wanted to work with. Here I was launching my new business coaching business, which was business and marketing, and so I didn't know if I wanted to be more of a consultant than a coach. Like, did I want to be a consultant for bigger corporations because I had worked with corporations in the past? And living here in Seattle, I set up some meetings with Expedia because they're headquartered here, and Starbucks because they're headquartered. Like, I was just setting up these meetings, and I think there was a part of me that thought, I wanted to work with these big names, right? These big name companies. And then I worked, I connected with local businesses, brick and mortars, that kind of thing. But I found that over time, as I started to connect with more entrepreneurs, I found that, and maybe this is the answer for me, is that my heart was with the entrepreneur. Like, I
Mhm.
felt most fulfilled when I was talking to individuals that were launching or had their own businesses that they had launched within the last few years, because it was like we were kindred spirits. Like, I'm like, oh, that's me too, right? Like, I just felt that connection with them. But I didn't know that until I started meeting with these different people that represented, in my case, different types of businesses. Um, and I just think that, again, at the end of the day, it's like, who do you really want to work with? What type of person or organization like really fills your heart and lights you up, so that when you're actually working with them, it's almost like the business side of it, like it's like secondary to the connection you have with the people. I mean, that, of course, that's me seeing life through my own lens, where I'm so passionate about connection. But that's how I knew that I wanted to work with entrepreneurs, and very specifically entrepreneurs who want to make an impact based on some story in their life, some expertise, something that they feel really um, gifted to be able to help others with. And so I'd say really tune into, as you talk to more people, who really is your person. Just like in relationships, like, who is your person? And then find more people like that person, because then you will have such a fulfilling experience, and you'll be wildly successful because of it. But it's like, not just financially, but in your heart, like in your joy and your fulfillment. um I would say that would be my answer. Feel good about the answer.
That's interesting. And maybe I could pose a question to you that I doubt if anybody's asked you this, but um, would kind of finding your niche audience or your avatar be kind of like dating?
For sure. Yeah. I don't think I've ever been asked that in that way, but absolutely. But I've actually used it as storytelling. When I think about when I was dating and like, it's like when I think about my love life and just the clearer I was with what was most important to me, what my core values are, it is similar because if you're here's the thing, if you're in a relationship based business, I'm not saying relationship coaching, but if you're in a business where it matters that like who your ideal client is, where are they now, where do they want to go, what are their gaps, what are their motivations, what are their pain points, what are their frustrations, what are they thinking about, right? Just in their own language. Like if you're in a business where these types of pieces of information matter, then you are in a relationship based business where your marketing and messaging and the customer journey matters. Then absolutely there is a parallel to dating, right? It's like, okay, well, what kind of person do I want to be with? Who am I, and who is this person? And what are my core values? How are we aligned or misaligned? And we probably all have stories of times when we were misaligned with the person we were dating or with. But when it's aligned, and I'm happy to
Mhm.
say that I'm with the love of my life, and it's so like it's how I believe. Get a little choked up. It's how I believe your love life should be, and then that translates into who is it that I really want to work with, not just as clients, but for those who hire team members. Who would I love to work with as my team? Because I'm going to be spending a lot of time with these people. Who do I want to collaborate with as partners and cross promotional partners? So to me, it always comes back to this piece around the people. And so, yeah, it very much is like dating. Like, let's get clear on who your person is and then attract more people like that.
I think you met Ken actually when I was back in the monastery. That was like 2018 or 19. And I think that's when you guys,
It was before that. Yeah, it was before. It was
oh, was
actually,
it?
yeah, it was in end of 2016 when we
Oh,
met.
okay.
Yeah. So,
Because I remember hearing about him and you guys were starting to do things together. And so I wanted to just mention, my journey after I left the monastery and I was sleeping in this abandoned church. My daughter in Minnesota here invited me to come and, crash in her basement. And I got a job at Home Depot of all places. But I actually got a message from who's now my wife. She reached out to me and she said, we need to talk. And we were both on Plenty of Fish. And so I had the paid version where I thought, I'll try this for 3 months. It was like $50.
yeah.
And it had on my phone, you could call them right then, and
Mhm.
it doesn't reveal your phone number. And
Yeah.
so I called her within like a minute of her sending that message. And she was thinking, oh my gosh, this guy is really fast, and Lord knows I've been in the monastery and, I've been, a couple of years since I even was on a date, but I noticed that in our conversation we had from the very first time, we talked for about an hour and a half, first phone call.
Yeah.
And there was something there that was just so special. And I
Mhm.
was actually looking at her pictures when I asked the first question. She said that she was a daredevil for her personality type. And so I was asking her about that and looking at her pictures. And I noticed that every one of her pictures, her eyes were closed.
Hmm.
And I was like, huh. And then I saw like this dog, had the muzzle around its or thing around its nose. And then I saw her headline. It says, ever had a blind date? Try me. And I found out that she had actually been blind from birth.
Wow.
And she was the most amazing and still is conversationalist.
Mhm.
And the three things I was really looking for in a life partner was, great conversation. We were compatible. We liked the same things. My ex-wife, I remember going on a cruise and we wanted to do completely different things. I wanted to go dancing in town. She wanted to stay on the ship and watch movies. I'm like, come on. So
That's
you
so
have to have that compatibility with communication, but
yeah.
also I was looking for somebody who's willing to be committed, that commitment. So those are my three C's I was looking for. And so I just knew from the first conversation is we needed to to meet. So 5 days later, we had a date, and it started at 10 o'clock in the morning and it ended up at 9:30 that night. It was
Amazing.
like the longest date I think I've ever had in my life. But it was just an amazing time. And there's something also too, is that I just felt like there's a whisper to me that if you pursue her, I'll show you a life you've never seen. And so that's a lot of what my book is about, because I was searching for a life that was filled to overflowing, and I just didn't seem to have it. And so one of her things that she asked me is like, Paul, how do you feel about the Holy Spirit? And I'm like, well, I've gone to church all my life. She goes, that's not what I'm asking. And so I was like, okay. And so I found out that she had a deep, just an amazing relationship, with a kind of I don't know what you call it. It's a life of vision of where she doesn't have eyesight, but she has something, deeper and more profound. So
Yeah.
it's a pretty amazing thing.
I love your story. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's really,
You
really
bet.
powerful. Yeah.
Glad to do it. So, moving forward, with people and that are trying to, kind of find their message, get clear on their purpose and all of that things. Why don't you tell our listeners, what is it that you're doing right now that you're the most excited about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it continues to be the through line of messaging and deep human connection, and more specifically, this product that we developed. And the reason why I'm so passionate about the Ideal Client Handbook is, up until AI, really, we would need to spend hours upon hours upon hours to do market research to really identify who our ideal client is. And every once in a while, I'll be interviewed or just in a conversation with someone who's like, "Hi, Amy, I don't know about this AI thing. Like, I just feel like it's, a little bit scary and a little bit skeptical, and got this resistance around it." I'm like, "Hey, I had the same resistance when I first started to experiment with it and learn about it and study it. And I was very clear with myself that if I use this tool, this intelligence, and it doesn't align with me, I won't use it. If I use it to write anything for me and if it's not authentic to me, just like if I was working with a copywriter or a ghostwriter, I won't use it. Like, it just doesn't work for me. And so over, over a year plus, uh, I really experimented with it and cracked the code on how to bring authenticity into it. And then more specifically, how to leverage it to deeply reveal who your ideal client is. And so what's great about, in my humble opinion, about the product that my team and I spent months and months developing, is that you don't even need to go into AI to use it. We have our own user interface. And if you're really wanting to gain clarity on who your ideal client is on the deepest level and what their motivations are, what their gaps are, their happiness drivers, how they make decisions, even when it comes to what you offer, the ideal customer journey, what they think about in their own words. I mean, this, as you know, it's a really in-depth qualitative analysis. Then this product will provide these insights for you, like it's done for you. And so I'm so excited about it, because for 12 years, I've been able to coach my clients in group coaching programs, one-on-one and VIP days and retreats. And they always needed access to me to prompt them with questions and to bring out their best messaging and reflect back. And so I'm one person, right? And so for the first time, I can deliver this product that goes so deep and has all these elements. My favorite elements of the Ideal Client Handbook are in quotes, because it's representing what your ideal client is thinking. And when you can know vulnerably what they are thinking, that is how you skyrocket to success, right? Like, that's when you speak a certain way. That's how you deeply connect with them. That's when you share with them, "Hey, I see you, I know you, I am you, I've been where you are now." And you can say it in the words in which they are thinking. And so I know I'm going to be able to help so many more people with this information because of this product that we've developed. So that's my vision for this year, is to really have this resource be the go-to resource for ideal client, and we wanted to make it very affordable as well. So I can't wait for more people to have it, to use it, to leverage it, and know that it's going to be a part of the foundation of their business. So I'm really excited about that.
That's amazing, Amy. So I just been so honored and pleased to have you on the podcast and to interact with you on a personal basis and get coached by you. Thank you so much. And so I know people can reach out and get a hold of you, but you've actually allowed me to have some of my clients come in and where we can actually work with them together to be able to do their ideal client handbook. And so I just want to thank you for that opportunity because I know there's so many people that really want to get dialed in on to not just who their audience is, but like what you said is what they're thinking.
Yeah.
And my first book that I wrote was called Top Gun Coaching. It was inside of the right up here, Coaching Inc. And it hit #1 first day. And what I talk about is that very same thing, is that you need to be able to close in a one call close of a high
Mhm.
ticket item is you
Yeah.
got to be on board with what your client's thinking and how you're going to be able to help them to achieve what it is that they want to achieve. And so you don't do that by imagining or trying to guess what it is. You arrive at it by figuring it out by asking the right questions. And so it's a great thing. So Amy, I want to thank you for today and just a chance to interact and looking forward to working together with you in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.